see any second phase, much less any peace. Our coverage begins with Bob Simon.
Theatrical tricks, old lines, and new props characterized the third act of this three-day drama. But when the curtain fell, there had been no reconciliations or ovations, and no guarantee that the show won't close on the road. Itzhak Shamir opened today's performance with a reprieve of the Syrian theme.
Syria merits the dubious honor of being one of the most oppressive, tyrannical regimes in the world.
Then he walked off stage, had to be back in Israel for the Jewish Sabbath. So he wasn't around when Syria's foreign minister pulled a picture out of his pocket, a 44-year-old photograph of Shamir taken when he was wanted by the British forces in Palestine for terrorism.
He himself recognized that he was a terrorist, that he practiced terrorism.
There was an unscheduled 2-hour intermission while director James Baker tried to bring the players to their senses and reach some agreement over where the next show, the bilateral talks, will open. The Israelis want them at home in the Middle East.
Why do we have to go around circling the globe looking for this city or that city? Why shouldn't we talk peace where peace is most needed?
The Syrians don't want to give the Israelis the kind of recognition that talks in the region would imply. The Palestinians say, too soon.
We are prepared to move to the Middle East if we have an independent state in which we can host the bilaterals, but we are a people under occupation, and we cannot negotiate under duress.
But behind the scenes, there was less agreement among the Arabs than their rehearsed lines would indicate. The Palestinians were angry at the Syrians for putting blocks on the road to negotiations. The Syrians were mad at the Saudis for towing the American line. Meanwhile, Shamir ordered the Israeli cast to come home on Monday. No more talks in Madrid. And Baker gave the entire performance a very mixed review.
The unwillingness of the parties to take confidence-building steps has been disappointing. You have failed to deal adequately with the human dimension of this conflict.
Meetings are scheduled on Sunday to discuss where to hold the next round of talks, but there's no way the Arabs and the Israelis will agree. The talks could break down over this largely symbolic issue unless the Americans dictate a compromise and make it stick. This could be a very telling preview of how the entire process is going to work over the next several years, if it's going to work at all. Dan?
Thanks, Bob. Israel and the Arabs talked at each other during the formal conference. There was some dialogue on the side, most of it between Israelis and Palestinians, who, after all, live together on the same land, both claiming it as their own. After this morning's meetings at Madrid's Royal Palace, I walked to a nearby park in the company of two men on the fringes of these peace talks. One, an Israeli, Harry Wall. The other, a Palestinian, Daoud Koutab. What are their lives like? How do they relate to one another? They have a lot in common, including fear.
We as Palestinians feel that somebody's choking us. I mean, somebody's really pulling tight and says, why don't you talk to us? Why don't you like us? And what we're saying is, you know, get that hand off my neck. Let me have a glass of water, and then I could look you eye to eye and say, okay, Harry, now we can talk.
Do you feel threatened by individual Israelis? You feel threatened by Harry?
I don't feel threatened by Harry, but I feel threatened by the army. I mean, 2 weeks ago, even after the peace conference was agreed, 3 Israeli soldiers walked into my house, broke into my privacy, walked in our bedrooms, and there was nothing I can do. I do feel threatened by Israeli soldiers, yes.
I know that in my own family, we've just had our first child, a baby girl, 2 months ago. And I see how my wife reacts when there are Palestinians who work in the neighborhood and come into the community.
Now she's afraid?
Now she's afraid. We've got to be free of violence on an individual scale, not just the threat of war.
Where do we go from here?
Call off the Intifada, issue a call to stop the violence so that our children aren't feeling threatened.
So you're asking us to do everything, and you're not offering anything to us. What are you offering us? What are you doing? What are you offering us?
Offering you the right to live in dignity and with control.
That's not something for you to offer. That's a right to live in dignity. It's not something you have to offer to us.
But until now you've rejected that right.
It doesn't make any sense, Harry. I'm sorry.
You have to bring a change in the mindset of the Arab world that Israel is not going to go away.
So maybe we have to do it together. Maybe they have to come alongside of each other. On the one hand, you give us back our land, and on the other hand, we will be a bridge to you and give you legitimacy in the Middle East.
As we come to the end of what was widely heralded as a historic week in Madrid, let's try to analyze what has happened. For analysis, we call again on our CBS News consultant, Professor Fuad Ajami of Johns Hopkins University. Fuad, thanks for being with us. President Bush and Secretary Baker poured time and resources into getting this conference. They say they're prepared to pour more in. At the end of the week, what do they have? What do we have?
Well, you know, from Napoleon to Reagan, the Middle East has cast a spell over Western statesmen. Western statesmen went there with all kinds of hopes, and they've always been bloodied and bruised there. And in effect, Bush and Baker they've been beckoned by the Middle East. They've been called to the Middle East, and they'd like to give it a try. They watched the spectacle today. They watched the Syrian foreign minister and what he did. It's a preview of what's to come.
What's their leverage, or do they have any more?
Well, they have a lot of leverage, but I think they're going to discover something very interesting, because having won the Gulf War, they think they could impose peace on the alleyways of Hebron and Nablus and so on. They could have let well enough alone. They could have attended to American interests in the Gulf, which truly matter, and they could have attended to Israel's security and then said, okay, this is about it. We can't really do any more. We are overextended. But instead, they decided, with the victory they won in the Gulf, they're now going to impose a Pax Americana in the Middle East, and they are going to be tested in the days to come.
President Bush has formed a new kind of alliance with Syrian President Assad. So far, what has he gotten for it?
Well, it's not so much an alliance. It's like the fact that we think we've got to do business with this man. He's got the missiles. He's got the power in the Levant. He's the man. It's not really the Palestinians. So we look at this. We look at the cast of characters, and we say we've got to do business with Assad. But Assad is a despot. Assad is a man who's been outside the currents of international relations. His foreign minister comes here and does what they've been doing for quite some time. He acted what Syria is really all about.
Fuad Ajami, thanks. We'll have more on the Middle East later in the broadcast. Coming up next, some of the other news of the day, including more about the American economy. More Americans are on the unemployment line. Even though the increase was small, a lot of people out there are hurting.
They were saying their goodbyes at the Compaq Computer Company in Houston, where they laid off 12% of the workforce today, more than 900 people. The workers had an expression for it.
This is Axe Day at Compaq. Heads are rolling.
A lot of heads have been rolling lately. The unemployment rate is up to 6.8%. Bad news reinforced by the first drop in 8 months of the index of leading economic indicators. Consumer confidence, home sales, factory orders, they're all down.
Good to see you guys.
It's bad news as well for President Bush, who happened to be in Houston today photo-opping with construction workers. Construction, it turns out, is one of the worst-hit industries. It's all forcing the president to modify his talk of an upturn.
The recession that we had been in, is not near as deep as the one that I lived through as vice president in 81 and 82. So I think we have less far to come to get out of it, in other words.
It's here at the unemployment office where the statistics become people. They say they've been busy here lately, and it's no surprise. In October, another 140,000 Americans became unemployed. Officially, 8.6 million Americans are now without work. Since this recession began in July of last year, 1,800,000 Americans have lost their jobs.
We've got a mortgage to pay and a car to pay for, and most important of all, 3 children to keep food in their stomachs and clothes on their back.
There are no positions available. Basically, there just are no jobs.
As a short-term solution, Congress and the president have been trying to reach a compromise on extending unemployment benefits. But talks broke off today with no agreement. They'll try again next week. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Washington.
If you need help trying to figure out and trying to survive the economic hard times, join us for a new series called The Money Crunch, Making It in America. The reports on the American economy and you begin Monday here on the CBS Evening News. Now, in other news today, Clarence Thomas had another swearing-in ceremony at the U.S. Supreme Court. He posed with Chief Justice William Rehnquist, and then Thomas took his place for the first time with the 8 other Supreme Court justices. Well, even by Minnesota standards, it was a whopper of a snowstorm today in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Traffic was snarled as 21 inches of snow piled up. That's a one-day record. America is part chemistry, part larceny. Take Cl, that's chlorine, H2O, water, add an alleged criminal element. And as Bob Paul reports, you have the formula for a taxpayer ripoff.
In Florida, water is vital, and what is vital for Florida's water is chlorine to make water safe to drink and to clean up sewage. No municipality here can do without it. So supplying chlorine to Florida cities is big business with big taxpayer dollars. Big, and according to Florida officials, crooked. In Panama City, something smelled fishy, and it wasn't chlorine. City Attorney Rolette Bryant gasped when he saw chlorine bids the city had received.
There were 6 bids received, 4 of them were the same. You just don't see that kind of bidding going on frequently, if ever.
At the local treatment plant, Superintendent Dan Banca was also suspicious.
When 3 or 4 firms for 3 or 4 diametric opposite ends of the earth come up with the same price, it's a little questionable.
All at the same price?
All at the same price.
What'd that tell you?
Well, that told me there was something funny going on.
Well, of course, it's possible that it is a wild coincidence.
Some coincidence. Florida officials in their lawsuit say that in just one part of the state in a 5-year period, of 65 bids by 4 companies, 55 were identical. Of 14 losing bids, 9 were the same.
These companies had conspired to rig the bids for these chlorine contracts in the state of Florida. What we've alleged is that it was done to raise the prices so that they could make more money.
And it wasn't just all those identical bids. Telephone records show that in just a 3-week period in 1988, 2 of the bidding companies talked more than 300 times.
300? They could have been discussing golf dates. The weather.
Probably. Okay.
You going to buy that?
No, I'm not going to buy that.
Historically, price-fixing charges are hard to prove because there is rarely first-hand evidence, no smoking gun. But in this case, Florida officials say that the president of this company not only rigged prices, he bragged to friends that he'd beaten the system. His name is Robert Jones. He is the pillar of this community where he runs a huge company. For 10 years, he often played golf and talked with Lorraine Casassa.
He said point blank that he talked to all the other people that were bidding, and he knew their price before the bids were placed.
He said, in my line of business, we get together beforehand and we fix
We know
things.
exactly what the bid is going to be before it's ever opened.
He told you that point
Yes,
blank?
he did, point blank.
Was he proud of it?
Bragging.
And when Lorraine Casassa asked Jones, isn't that wrong?
He says that's how big business is done. How do you think big corporations are formed?
By cheating.
By cheating.
Jones would not discuss the charges on camera because he says a federal court won't let him. His lawyer, though, insists the allegations are absolutely false, that the chemical companies involved never conspired, and that Florida's case rests on, quote, an extraordinarily superficial analysis, which means nothing. As for Lorraine Casassa, he says she's making it all up because she's got a grudge against Jones. And Florida's case against the chemical companies is by no means open and shut.
Do you have any direct evidence of conspiracy? No. Have you found anyone who's come forward and admitted that, in fact, there is a conspiracy? No.
Florida officials and the companies are now discussing a settlement. Companies would pay penalties but admit no guilt.
The state of Florida, once they finish with him, all they want is his money. Once he pays, he's scot-free to turn around and do it again.
Already, say state officials, alleged bogus bids have soaked taxpayers for more than $1 million, and that in other states, chemical companies are still giving customers a real bath. Bob Cole, CBS News, Tallahassee.
Have you? Officials now say they weren't aiming for a diplomatic breakthrough, but rather a mind-changing experience for the people of the region. We have 2 reports from the Middle East. First, Doug Tennell in Jordan.
In Jordan, where more than half the population is Palestinian, some people are growing increasingly optimistic about the chances for peace. A survey by Professor Nasser Taboub of Jordan's University shows that only 15% of all students still oppose the current peace effort.
Within the last week, I saw a change within the mood of that 15%. I think being swayed towards supporting the International Peace Conference. And
Taboub has seen that change of mood even in his own family. One of 4 brothers who grew up in Jerusalem, they have gathered with friends around the TV sets at the family's appliance store in Amman and stayed to debate the issues in Madrid late into the night.
Shamir, can I give you anything? Remind me next
I'm sure he might not, but actually at least we'll give him a chance.
Yeah, but you know,
Lawyer Nasri Taboub knew Madrid was a good thing when he saw the expression on the face of his 10-year-old son as he watched the talks.
He was smiling, and I felt it as a father. This is the first time I saw my son.
Engineer Rajai Taboub would like to believe in this peace process, but
we have been waiting for so long. That's the main thing, you know. And many trials for peace were made, but nothing was successful.
The Israelis... I'm not against peace. I want peace.
Yusri Taboub trusts neither the Israelis nor the Americans and considers Madrid a charade.
This conference is going to be a failure. Nothing is going to be done. It's a matter of an international rehearsal. I'm sorry, I don't trust him.
Okay.
What the American...
His interest, Habibi, now for the time being, he should work for peace. For the time being.
You have to be a realist.
4 brothers, 4 Palestinians, 4 points of view. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Amman.
On the West Bank, where violent death is commonplace, Palestinian youngsters spent their prayer day demanding peace now before it's too late. Tel Aviv, Sabbath night. It seems like a different world. But Israeli kids know war, too. 4 of them were wounded and 7 lost their parents in one attack this week. The Israelis have suffered massacres of young and old over the years, but it took the Gulf War and Iraqi Scud attacks to bring horror into the homes and schools of Tel Aviv. Then, incredibly, Arabs and Jews sitting down to talk peace. A moment of euphoria. Could there be an end to war? Children, like their elders, wondered. Now they watch television and see hatred reflected from the screen. Their parents tell them accusations and insults are part of the propaganda and the bargaining. The peace process takes time. But for the kids who'll probably soon be challenging Israeli guns again, and for the youngsters being taught to use those guns, each day wasted in rhetoric could mean a wasted life. Bert Quinn, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
We'll be leaving Spain shortly, but not before we show you around this unique and beautiful country. The tour of Spain in the 1990s begins in a moment, so stay here with us. Africa, the Islamic Moors. Jews also played a major role in Spanish history right up until the Inquisition. Modern Spain is firmly rooted in the West, but as Tom Fenton shows you, it is still different.
17th century Spaniards crossed Arab stallions with a local breed to produce the Spanish horse. And like most things in Spain, the result was unique and exotic. This is a country where horses dance like humans. And where humans dance with an animal passion. The pride that flows through the veins of Spaniards comes from a rich inheritance that was foolishly spent on grand designs. In the foothills of the Guatemala Mountains stands the Escorial Palace, built 400 years ago when Spain was the most powerful nation on earth. This is the ultimate castle in Spain, a shrine of the national values. It typifies Spain's taste for the grandiose and the stark sadness of its character. You sense the melancholy in the landscape. Spain is the land of sol y sombra, of sun and shade, of great estates owned by the few and grinding misery shared by the many. Boys in Andalusia practice the art of flirting with death and dream of someday escaping from poverty by killing 100 bulls. The national sport is cruel and dangerous. But if you cannot understand why Spaniards love bullfighting, then you cannot understand Spain. Death is nothing. Style is everything. For this is a country that dances to a different tune. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Madrid.
And that's part of our world tonight. Bob Schieffer will have the news tomorrow. I'll see you Monday from New York. Dan Rather for the CBS Evening News. From Madrid, Spain, buenas noches.